Welcome to the Michigan Golfer Show. Join us each week as we explore the people, the places, and the events that shape our great game.
scramble. Men are playing white tees, ladies play the reds. 65 plus for men, you are playing the forward tees if you choose. Veterans get to play any tee that they choose. Max score today is bogey, so if you bogey, please pick up, move on to the next hole. Please keep up with the group in front of you. Some contests on the hole, or on the course today. We have closest to the pin for men. It's on hole number 14. Please wait to hit your first tee shots until you hear that horn. You have lead-ups to take you onto the golf course, so please wait for your lead-ups to signal you to go onto the golf course.
Hi, I'm John Retcher. I'm the editor, writer, photographer, programmer, publisher, janitor at golfblogger.com, a blog that I've been writing for the last 20 years. I am just thrilled, have been thrilled over these last 20 years to have been able to call Washtenaw Golf Club my home course. The course is 125 years old this year, making it one of the oldest in Michigan. The original architect was Burt Way, who also did Firestone Country Club in Ohio. So quite a historic place. And over the last 10 years, this place has really undergone a real renaissance, especially with the ownership of Dave Kendall, Steve Davis, and Nick Ma, and who have worked with Michigan-based golf architect Ray Hearn to make this to roll the course back to its golden age roots. And the superintendents here have just made this an amazing place to play, and I just can't think of a better place in Michigan golf than Washtenaw Golf Club to call home.
So you're always thinking, oh, I should have been able to get that. Well, then we brought in Ray Hearn because I don't want to think because I know a little bit about golf that I should make decisions about this historic place, so I run everything by him. He's a historian. And we are making changes to the golf course because the golf course needs to be managed. Mm-hmm. You know, trees get huge and they die. And a
dozen of them over there.
Yeah. It's because actually, you know, when I talked to Ray, the original architect wanted these angles in these playing lines, and they don't exist because of the trees have imposed. They get big over 50 years and 100 years. They get so big that they need to be managed. And so you're not doing wrong when you manage them. I asked, I wondered, how many trees do we have at Washtenaw? And I figured the only way I'm going to get the answer is to go out and count them. So I did. It's 1,298.
Okay.
For instance, a lot of our trees grew into each other. So as they get bigger, they grow into each other, and it's not healthy for either of them. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to get so that every tree that's out there, there's a reason for it to be. Sometimes it's just a nice tree. It's painful on the 11th hole. We've got a big, beautiful, beautiful tree. It's so in the wrong place that it's going to have to be eventually taken because there's no grass underneath it, and it's imposing on the green. Uh-oh. You know what I mean? And it's just going to get bigger. And so we should think, wherever a tree is, what's it going to be in 40 years from now? We should actually make the job easier for the people who are here 40 years from now. I'm hope. So I got this message from Ray Hearn, and it's and I call him back, and I get a recorder, and it says Ray Hearn Golf Associates. So we get hooked up. He comes in. I said, Ray, you're in the golf business. What do you do? Oh my gosh, long pause. I'm a golf course architect.
Hey, what are you up to?
Well, we're doing a lot right now. COVID's had an opposite effect on the golf industry as most other businesses, but the Washtenaw Golf Club project has been very interesting. And not only because of its history, me working with my lifetime friend, Dave Kendall. And I want to show you a little show and tell. I'm going to put this without hitting the microphone. 1945 sketch that now complements our 1936 aerial photo from the Michigan State Archives. That is gold.
Wow.
That's a gold find in golf course architecture. That's a gold find. And then Dave and I, when we're out in the course with Mark Pappas, the superintendent, we're like geologists. I got my soil probe. I'm finding old corners of the greens. Oh, wow. Once in a while, I bring out, the dreaded shovel. And then I know you were talking to a couple stumps on the course today that are like, is Ray Hearn mad at us? He keeps... eliminating some of our friends, and but what we're doing here, and you've heard other golf course architects say this before, the word is tweaking.
Okay, so this hole, number 14, par 3, plays about 180, depending on which tee position you play from. The left side, a couple years ago, I took out 15 or 16 trees, big old black oaks and hickories. At one point you could not hit a fade. If you're right-hander, you couldn't hit a fade on this hole. Now we open it up and you can curve a little fade in. We're public now, so 80% of golfers hit a fade or a slice. So we made
I did not know that.
Yeah, we made it a lot easier for the average golfer to play well in this hole. Years ago, you would almost have to hit a draw into here or a straight shot, which not many people can hit a straight shot. We also made the approach area squared and much wider, and there used to be a strip of rough between the approach and the green, and now we mow that all the way up to the green, into the green basically. So it's just trying to make it a little easier. This hole is always really tough, and it's still a tough hole.
Yeah.
And the green's very difficult, but it's a little easier to play now for the average golfer, for the public golf. So here we are at Old 14. This is now a practice/chipping area for the members and the season pass holders. This bunker here that you see is probably going to be cut in half, and we're going to put a tee right in this area so that 15 will play a little longer. We don't have any par 4s in the back 9 that are substantially long, good distance, so this is a hole that over the next couple years we'll add a tee right in this area and fill in part of this bunker. We'll leave part of the bunker for the practice, and the season pass guys can come and still practice out of it, but being a practice area, we don't need this huge bunker, and this is a good place for us to add yardage to the back 9. So this is number 15, par 4. We took out probably 20 or so trees on the right side here, and another at least 10 on the left side of the fairway. At one point, this hole was just a little chute. Very difficult to hit the fairway off the tee, and if you did hit the fairway, you could still be stymied by trees on the right. So we opened it up a lot more and just make it more playable, more fun, better shot angles. Just an overall funner hole now. I don't see any more trees coming out on this hole for quite some time, although there's a few on the left side. that we might have to take out just because they're not healthy. Looks pretty good, but there's some health questions on some of the ones up further. I had cut a few down a few years ago, and the center of the trees were rotted, but it didn't look rotted. So, you know, I mean, there's a couple over there at the base of them. You can see the holes in them.
Yes. Oh, yeah, I see that. Yes.
So, I mean, at some point that'll have to be addressed. This is number 16, par 4. It's a short par 4, but years ago it was just a little narrow chute. It was like a tunnel down this hole, and we've widened it, probably 20 trees on the left side, another 10 or 15 on the right, to make it more playable, you know. It's a lot more forgiving now. You can curve it in any which way you want. Just a funner, more easier hole down. All in all, it's a good change. It makes leaf removal easier in the fall also, and we had poor turf quality under these trees, so there was a lot of dirt, and they were too close together, too big. They hung way over the fairway. So I think all in all, it's been it's been an improvement.
And you got a few more years to go before, like, the master plan. Are you following that pretty religiously, or you kind of, once you and Ray get together, you kind of both you know, make decisions on things?
Well, yeah, we work together on that. I mean, there's you usually agree with everything that either one of us comes up with.
Yeah.
For the most part, I can't think of any times that we've disagreed with each other. So we've added a rock wall around the pond. We were experiencing a lot of erosion, and the approach was getting smaller and smaller, and around the green was getting smaller. So we did this to slow down that erosion issue. Also, our fountain, we had to order another one. The other one broke on us, but we're gonna have a fountain there next spring. The back of the green used to have a big Crimson King maple, back right, which shadowed the entire green. We removed that and a couple pear trees and a sick birch tree that was behind the green. And then left of the approach, we had about 6 pear trees over there, Cleveland or Bradford pears. And they weren't doing us any favor with turf quality in that area, so we removed those too.
Well, Mark Pappas, thanks for this interview. We appreciate it. We really enjoyed the course. Now that we can play it ourselves, it's wonderful what you've done here.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Hi there, Doug Bell from American Dunes Golf Club, and one of the legacy employees of David Kendall from years ago up at the Cadillac Country Club. Was able to play Washtenaw today in his fundraiser for Folds of Honor, and I'll tell you, after having the opportunity to play here a few different times in this event, the golf course was spectacular. Probably the best I've seen it. Condition-wise, they had it excellent, and I'm not used to seeing such big trees. Some old-school golf here with large trees, but you know, you have to respect what the golf course gives you, and learn not to just swing away. So we had a wonderful day. It's touching that. To know where the funds are going and all the families across the nation that David and his staff here are helping by having this event, and it's near and dear to our heart at American Dunes. But it's a special invitation to be able to come down and play with a team and support Dave and the rest of the staff here at Washtenaw. So kudos to what they're doing to bring the history of Washtenaw back, and with the little tweaks to the golf course they're doing over a period of years. And if you haven't played it recently, you need to come see what they're doing.
Hi, I'm Jennie McCafferty for the Michigan Golfer, and today we're with Jim Nelson, who some of us might acknowledge as the official historian of Washtenaw Golf Club, formerly known as Washtenaw Country Club. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well, thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah, it sure is. In fact, it's almost as though your family has had an affair with this golf club going way back.
Quite a ways back.
Yeah.
Right, yes.
Your dad was chairman of the 50th anniversary celebration?
He was, yes. That story, my parents came to Michigan around 1935 from New Jersey, and they were living in Detroit, and my dad worked for the Rexall Drug Company, and he was calling on the local Rexall drug store in Ypsilanti, and one of the owners there brought him out to see Washtenaw Country Club. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of it for him. He almost immediately joined Washtenaw, and they moved to Ypsilanti.
Oh, no kidding.
Right.
That's pretty cool. And your mom has her own place in Michigan golf history. Tell us a little bit about what she did.
Well,
Mary, her name is Mary.
Mary Nelson, yeah. She was, of course, played golf here and was active in the women's group here at Washtenaw. And then I was in high school, so I think it was in the late. The idea came about starting a Michigan women's senior tournament. And their biggest concern was whether or not they could get women to admit that they were more than 50 years old in order to play in the tournament.
Oh, that's good.
So I can remember, you know, I'd come home at night and say, oh, we got another 10 entrants today. And so they started here at Washtenaw, and the inaugural event was very, very successful, and they formed the Michigan Women's Golf Association, and my mother was elected to be the first president of that. So,
wow, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So, two movers and shakers, if you will.
Well, yeah, they participated here,
Yeah.
that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, and carrying on, you yourself were chairman of the centennial celebration.
Correct, yeah. See, probably by default, they knew that my dad had been chairman in 1949. So,
Yeah.
right. So, yeah, it was a great kind of honor for me to do that, and,
Yeah.
you know, especially because of my dad's history.
Yeah. And this book really celebrates the centennial. Tell us a little bit about how the book itself came to be.
Well, I think that when we started that process of trying to figure out what we would do with the 100th anniversary, we thought that it was really important to try to capsulize the history in one place. And we were very, very fortunate. Bill Sliger, who had been a long-time member here at Washtenaw, ran the newspaper in Northville and was in the printing business. And Bill agreed to head up the effort to do that book, and it would not look like it came out if it hadn't been for Bill and his expertise. Mm-hmm. And So he really coordinated the whole thing and put it together, and I mean, I think it came out pretty well.
Well, the book itself has been a great resource for all the stories we've been trying to do on the course to celebrate the 125th. This is coming up soon.
Right.
Yeah.
Another mark in the history of Washtenaw.
Right. Well, some of the things that always strike me is this place was old enough that in the old days, sheep were in charge of cutting the grass.
Yeah. I never saw the sheep.
I know. Yeah, and I think one of the other things that I thought was kind of funny in the olden days is that the caddies, their job was to carry clubs, to find the ball, and to chase the sheep off the greens.
Right, yeah. And I mean, through the later history of Washtenaw, caddies were an important part of what went on here, because they had a strong caddy program, and we had at least one young man who was about the same age as I growing up, Chuck Barnes, who was selected to be a caddy and received an Evans scholarship to attend the University of Michigan. So.
Oh, okay, yeah. And the Evans scholarships are for caddies.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. Right.
Yeah. We met with some caddies who at French Lick Resort who were caddies when they were little kids, and now they're old enough to tell good stories. So it's always fun to talk to people who used to be the caddies. Yeah, it's pretty cool. One of the people who's kind of important here is Ken McLaughlin. He's he was described in this book like 25 years ago as a veteran gardener. And one of the things that really distinguishes Washtenaw Golf Club is the landscaping and the flowers.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does a wonderful job, and it's nice to just drive in and see the beds around the clubhouse. They're beautiful.
Yeah, they always are, and it changes with the seasons. McLaughlin, who's always busy because he takes care of all the flowers, and I don't think any golf club has prettier flowers.
Well, thanks very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
it's something that's disappearing from golf courses in general, I hear.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, you wouldn't know it here. They're in front as you drive in. They're all around the clubhouse. They're all around the course. So, how did you first get interested in flowers?
Well, a long time ago, about 30 years ago, when I started here, I was just a member of the crew, and I was did flowers about half the day and worked on the crew the other half. Okay. And all they had was annuals at the time. This was decades ago, and I just asked my boss one day, "What do you think about we switch the general theme up of including some shrubs and perennials and make it a little more complex?" And he agreed, and off I went. I went to the Master Gardener classes here in Ann Arbor.
Kidding.
Yes. Wow. And just found a love for it and continued.
So you find all different colors, all different shapes, all different, some are little, some are tall. How do you go about picking the right flower for the place? Like right behind us.
Well, essentially it's first I think about light, how much light the plants need, and if this area will have that. And then there's soil drainage, things of that nature. And then as you're progressing into the garden, you're mixing colors, textures. Plants have different texture, leaves have different texture. All those things you combine in an element that is pleasing to the eyes.
So all that stuff you think about so we don't have to.
Exactly.
Well, Ken, it's always a treat to come. Even though we're here several times a week, I always notice something different. So congratulations on making it such a fun experience.
Well, thanks very much. It's my pleasure.
Wanted to talk about this group of people who are mentioned in the book called the Old Guys, which I think is kind of a funny way to describe anybody. And never mind trying to find women over 50.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about that group. It met Tuesday through Sunday at 10:30 a.m. for quite a long time.
Yeah, and I think it just was a situation where a group, I don't know, there may have been 20 or so of them, were at an age where they were retired, and golf was an important part of their life, and they had been playing here at Washtenaw for a long time, and I think it just formed and developed without any real structure to it. It's just that everybody showed up and they made their groups up and off they went.
Yeah, I think having an appointed time every week really helps, because you don't have to call people up and make appointments and arrange tee times. It just happens.
Yeah, one of the really wonderful things about Washtenaw over the years was that you could always come to Washtenaw and get a game. I mean, there were no real cliques. You could just you didn't have to worry about tee time. You knew there was a group that's going to play at 9 o'clock, and you could show up and you'd be welcome to play.
One of the things that's been somewhat interesting is Washtenaw's gone from private to public and back again several times. Have you noticed much of a difference when the club changes from public to private and back again?
Well, I guess I would answer by saying, first of all, most of my history, it was a private club. And I've always thought of it as a private club, and I actually continue to think of it as kind of a private club.
Golf Show, and we're here at the Polo Fields booth with John Myers, who's the head golf professional of now you've got more than one course.
Yes.
Tell us about all the excitement that's been happening there, John.
Well, it's a lot of excitement for us this year. Being bought out, Washtenaw Country Club, it's long-standing traditional golf course, was bought out by the Polo Fields this year. So not only do you get a fine golf course in the Polo Fields by Bill Newcomb, but now also you get a classic golf course in Washtenaw Country Club.
And I think that course, the Washtenaw Country Club course, is more than 100 years old, isn't it?
Correct. It was established in 1899, been around for a long time. Donald Ross did oversee some of the work out there, and it's just your classic traditional golf course. It's one that you can't find anymore in the state of Michigan, really.
So from my own perspective, it hasn't changed, especially since Dave Kendall and his group acquired the club. There are a group of us that still think of ourselves as members, I'm quite sure.
Yeah.
So there are some differences, but it operates pretty much the same for me in my life.
Yeah. So I think one of the significant things about a club or a group of people who keep coming and playing is you know a lot of people. Everybody knows your name.
Correct, yeah. Yeah, there's always been a group, and that kind of, I think, goes back to when Tom Talkington came here as the pro in the early 50s. I mean, Tom did an awful lot to develop golf at this club, and he was responsible for kind of forming some groups that have lasted over the years. And but that's the way Washtenaw has been. There's always been a group that you could play with, and you knew everybody, and it's made it a very comfortable place to be. In the Men's Invitational started here at Washtenaw, which turned out to be one of the best invitationals in the state of Michigan. It was different than almost anybody else's. It was a four-man teams, and Tom just promoted golf. And if there was an event, I mean, you'd walk into the pro shop and he said, "Have you signed up yet for this weekend?" That was important. I mean, to get people to participate.
So you recruited people for this.
He sure did. He sure did.
And sometimes clubs have tournaments on Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day. Seems to be a typical time for tournaments. Was that true here?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, big events. I mean, And most of those events were couples events.
Oh, okay.
I mean, mixed events.
Wow.
And I think one of the interesting things was that they would have an event, we'll say, on the 4th of July, and it would be maybe 4 or 5 member teams, and they would be made up of, just various aspects of the membership. I mean, the Pro Shop, I think, put the teams together, and I always thought that the most interesting thing was that the very best men's players always participated in those events.
Oh, okay. Now that makes a difference when the good guys are, everybody's out to beat them.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too that you mentioned couples, and one of the things I was struck by was the extent to which women have always had a really strong presence here. In fact, of the original 99 members, 11 of them were women. That had to be unusual.
Well, I think it was unusual, and you're right, it was a very important and maybe sometimes overlooked factor here at Washtenaw. Lynn Whitmire, who was a charter member of the club and remained a member for the rest of her life, I think was a really, really important part of Washtenaw, because you may have seen all of the scrapbooks that have been prepared.
Haven't seen inside all of them, but I've seen them all out on a table. Yeah.
Right, and a lot of those are made up of newspaper articles.
Okay.
And in those days, you could write your article and take it to the newspaper, and they would publish it. Well, I would say that probably 90% of those and all of those books were written by Lynn Whitmire.
Okay.
And published in the Ypsilanti Press. And when you think about it, I mean, the press has always been an important thing. And if you have an organization, and every week there's an article, or even more than one article in the newspaper about your organization.
Yeah.
That's good, right?
That's in a way, that's marketing.
It's great marketing,
Yeah.
right? So,
yeah, that's pretty cool.
and so I think that is really true. Another factor in terms of women's participation was with the junior program. It was really the women that ran the junior program, and so particularly in my memory, Doris Greenstreet and Lil Dobbs, both of whom had children here, kind of started the junior program, and it really was a wonderful program. And it did involve not only golf, but I mean, we elected officers and kind of ran our little junior golf association ourselves.
So you were really one of the mainstays of the junior golf program here.
We've had a lot of great players come out of this area. I mean, you got Doug Davis, the Ream boys, Jeff and Frank Ream, the Muirs, Kev. I mean, we've had a lot. Jeff Dobbs won the state championship in high school. I won the state championship in high school.
More than
My brother
once.
Tim. I mean, this was a hotbed for junior. Ed Humanick, who played on the tour for 8 years. Just a lot of really good players came out of here.
Well, it sounds more complicated than it might seem, because not only are you recruiting kids, but you have to teach them how to play golf.
Yeah, right. And again, I mean, I mentioned those two by name because they kind of headed it up, but I mean, every junior day, I mean, there were plenty of women here they had to walk with the little kids and, try to teach them not so much golf maybe, but at least the etiquette of golf.
That's a huge story of golf, isn't it?
Right.
That's pretty cool. Well, during the time that you've been here, you've probably known quite a few of the pros. How about someone like Jim Applegate?
Well, Jim, kind of followed, really, I knew Larry Pentuck. He was just here for a year or two, and then Tom Talkington had a long stay here at Washtenaw, and then Randy Erskine came along. And Jim, I think, maybe followed Randy. He was close, someplace in that pecking order. And, I mean, one of Jim's characteristics was that he was a great manager. I mean, everything ran really, kind of was a perfectionist, I think. So, you know, if you were having a tournament, you might find that all of the golf carts were out there in a perfect circle, you know, to start
Yeah.
the day, and everything was done just exactly right. And I think at one point Jim was hoping maybe he could become the general manager and run the whole club, and it might have been a good idea if that had happened, but it didn't. Jim was a really good person and did a good job here.
Well, the years kind of had several facets of him, that job himself.
Well, Randy sure was special. I mean, of course, he was a special golfer to begin with, and had a history of playing good golf at a very high level. And then, of course, he had a great personality, and he had Judy too, his wife, and she participated heavily in running the pro shop, and I think doing the buying and marketing of the pro shop. And so yeah, Randy was a wonderful asset to have at Washtenaw.
How about Jeff Cummings, another one who was a pro?
Well, Jeff was here for a fairly short period of time, and he was here during one of the situations where there was a real bad storm right before the Women's Invitational, and a lot of trees came down, and so in my memory, I kind of remember, Jeff was out there with a chainsaw helping cut up the trees and get them off the fairways, so they could actually play the tournament. He was a friendly person, but only here for, I think, a couple of years.
Yeah, and another one that comes to mind is Tom Deaton.
Yeah, Tom Deaton came here, I think, primarily to be an instructor. I mean, he had been a long-time pro at, I think, at Franklin Hills Country Club, and had retired maybe from there, I'm not sure. And so you would mostly see Tom down on the practice tee giving lessons. That seemed to be his main role during the period of time he was here. And that was also for a fairly short period of time, maybe a year or so.
Well, it's interesting that you mention instruction, and that's obviously got to be part of it. Every golfer, no matter how, even the pros, always practice and always try to get better. And who are some of the other people who've been responsible for instruction here?
Wow. Well, of course, it was almost always the pros that were doing it. Again, I go back to Tom Talkington. He had an assistant, Gary Carley, who eventually became the head pro at the leading country club in Indianapolis, Indiana. And both of them were good instructors. It was harder back then because there was no practice range. So you had to go down here, like maybe next to number 18 green, and hit balls out into the fairway, and had to have caddies out there picking up the balls. So, but all of the pros, I think, that were here were instructors, and some probably better than others.
Yeah. Well, the practice range now, didn't there used to be a pool there?
Correct. There was a swimming pool right out here in front of where we're sitting, and so I think that pool was built around 1952 or 3, and was there for, well, it was still there when my kids were growing up in the 70s. And it was actually, they started a small practice range even when the pool was there, and then were able to enlarge it when the pool was removed. So I think originally the first tee for Washtenaw was more in front of where we're sitting, so that's why there wasn't room for a practice range. So when they moved the tee over, then it made more space.
Okay. And then they opened another smaller pool up front and closed that recently.
Correct. Yeah. I think after this pool was taken out, there may have been a few years without a pool, and the idea was that a country club should have a pool, and so a new pool was constructed. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there were tennis courts at one point.
There were?
Too, yes.
Where were they?
Well, they were just to the east of where the pool was out here. But,
oh, okay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
There have been a number of people who have been through the years the movers and shakers of the club, and some characters. And one of the ones who comes to mind is Ben Taylor, who was the manager of the men's locker room.
Ben was very special, right? And there are a lot of things, probably a lot of stories that could be told about Ben, but I'll tell you my favorite story.
Okay.
So Ben was here when they redid the locker room, and so we all got new lockers at that point. And so Ben came to me one day and he said, "Mr. Nelson," he said, "I don't want you ever to forget your combination for your locker." He said, "So I'm going to write it right here inside your locker." So that was Ben.
Which is a great place in case your locker's locked.
Right.
Oh, that's funny. That's pretty cool. Well, some of the other people you already mentioned, Randy Erskine.
Mm-hmm.
How about Shirley Spork?
Well, I only know that Shirley Spork by name.
Okay.
You know, she participated in the exhibition that they had for the 50-year anniversary,
Mm-hmm.
and I think she was a young, maybe a student at Eastern or Michigan at the time,
Okay.
but she went on to have a career in golf and
Yeah.
play, I think, on the women's tour even.
Yeah.
But I really didn't know her, or I don't
Yeah.
think I ever saw her.
But she was a name that people knew.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right. Yeah. Well, the club had some pretty dramatic events, including a big fire in 1987.
Mm-hmm.
What happened to people playing golf when the club itself had a big fire?
Well, really nothing happened to the people playing golf. They set up what I guess today would be called a food truck down near number 10 T, and so the golf course was open the whole time, and there was no interference in terms of golf. And the people that ran the food truck were were serving mostly, sandwiches and hamburgers and that sort of thing, but you could get food and you could get beverages, and some people thought that was one of the best times at Washtenaw during that period of time while the house was being reconstructed.
Yeah. Well, when something that dramatic happens, is there a committee of people who get together and plan a new building, or what happened?
Well, Washtenaw has always been, as a private club, was operated by a board of directors, and so there was a board, and yes, there was a lot of planning that had to go on, and I think that during that period of time there was probably a lot of ideas as to what should happen in terms of rebuilding, and I think fortunately the clubhouse was rebuilt more or less like the original.
Okay.
It doesn't have an upstairs that the original had, but it kept the same footprint, and of course both ends were still here after the fire.
So it's just the middle that burned.
Yeah, the middle is the part that burned.
Yeah.
And
what happened to trophies and things like that?
well, those were pretty much preserved.
Okay.
I think. There are some of the trophies are now on display in the pro shop, and I don't think that there was too much in the way of loss there, and all of the history of the club was pretty well maintained. All of those scrapbooks and things were in the office, which was upstairs and was not affected by the fire. So I don't think there was a great deal of loss except for the structure.
Yeah, yeah. So, meanwhile, we're looking out and the sun has come out and the course, as usual, looks just beautiful. Talk a little bit about the course and what are some of your favorite holes?
Well, I thought you would probably ask me how the course had changed.
Okay, I'll ask you how the course had changed.
Years, but for me, the big changes over the years. One was irrigation when they started to water, had the ability to water all of the fairways, and then of course trees. Everybody talks about the trees on Washtenaw, and a lot of them. Some of them were planted when I was a child, and I saw them all grow up, like the willow.
So the trees grow up.
Willow trees down here on 7 and 8, and then there's been a change over the years in the creek that goes through Washtenaw is Paint Creek, and it was just a natural creek, and there were not much in the way of ponds, and I think it was probably in the 70s when the Drain Commission, actually they wanted to put the whole creek in a pipe and run it through here. And Dick Roberts was pretty instrumental in negotiating with the Drain Commission, and that resulted in us getting some ponds and maintaining most of the natural creek that came through the club. So
no pipe.
No pipe, and so nice pond in front of 18 and a pond down in front of number 7, and so those were changes that took place. And then on holes 15 and 16, when I was a young person here, there was no pond on 15 and 16. There might have been a pond in the spring, but during the summer there was no pond there. So that was one of the big changes when they actually started pumping water in there and created a permanent pond. In terms of favorite holes, gee, I mean, this is a wonderful golf course. I mean, all of the holes are really great holes. I think for me, one of the hardest holes is number 17. It's a fairly long par 4, and then when you get on the green, you can be in a lot of trouble on the green.
You're right about it's beautiful all up and down, and a lot of that does have to do with the landscaping and the trees. And I think the trickiest part about trees on a golf course is they grow.
They sure do.
And I know when Ray Hearn came in, some of the trees aren't here anymore.
Yeah, a lot of trees have been removed, and that seems to be the modern thing to do with golf courses, is old golf courses, is to remove trees. And I think they've done a really wonderful job. I mean, they've cleaned up some areas. They've taken trees out where you had to negotiate a tree even if your ball was in the fairway, and I think that it was pretty dramatic when you saw all those trees going down, but when you see the result, I think it's all quite positive.
It makes a difference because, like you say, they grow, and you can cut back a few limbs here and there, but that doesn't last very long.
Yeah, I think in terms, if we talk about growth, at one point, for 150 yard markers, they put little pine trees in on each side of the fairway, and they were about 2 feet tall when they were planted, and then after a while they got to be maybe 30 or 40 feet tall.
That's a new one. I've never heard that before. That's pretty cool. So you're getting ready to go play pretty soon, so we don't want to keep you much longer, but if you had to tell somebody who knew nothing about this course, how would you describe it to them?
Well, I would say you're going to like it, and I think you're going to like playing here, and you're going to enjoy the people that are here, and if you want a nice sandwich or salad, you can get that after you play as well. But I think Washtenaw has always been welcoming. I think it continues to be, and It's a real asset for the community. And sometimes I don't know if the community as a whole recognizes that, but it's a great asset for the Ypsilanti area.
Well, Jim Nelson, I think you're an asset to the community. So thank you so much for telling us the story here.
Well,
I'm Jennie McCafferty with Michigan Golfer. We're at beautiful, historic Washtenaw Golf Club. And with us is Donna Hatch, who's the director of pretty much everything here, but officially sales and marketing. Tell us a little bit about how you first got involved with Washtenaw Golf Club.
I actually started at the Polo Fields Golf and Country Club.
Oh, okay.
In 2008. And when that company decided to purchase Washtenaw Golf Club, I was part of that company still. So then we ended up with two beautiful properties, two distinctly different golf courses, which opened up a lot of opportunities for our members, because we at that time were completely private. And then in 2017, that's when we went public, so to speak, and at that time in let me back up. We purchased Washtenaw Golf Club in 2010, and I say we meaning because I was with the other company as well. And in 2010, I was at that time the merchandiser in the golf department, so I worked in both places and traveled both back and forth.
Oh wow!
And then in 2012. Because business was growing and we had two established properties with our membership and doing outside events and everything in between, they needed help. So at that time, then I moved over to the sales department. I worked my way up. In 2018, when Polo Fields actually was purchased by somebody else, and the same company owned Washtenaw Golf Club, I had the opportunity to come over here and move up in the position that I'm in now, and so I came over and it's been great ever since. So and we do pretty well here. So
yeah. Well, you're responsible for so many events, different kinds of events, but one of the most visible ones is weddings. In fact, we came by one the other day. About what it takes to attract an event like a wedding.
Wedding business is interesting. We have a gorgeous property here, and couples are looking for a lot. The distance that years ago, it kind of goes in a cycle. They are looking for before in a radius of like 20 minutes. Now the radius has changed to an hour or over that. So yeah, so we get a lot of people that aren't just local. Brides are looking for what they're looking, a theme, a feel, and we kind of have a hidden gem here. And with our history being of 125 years old, there's a lot of character here. So the willows, the bridges, the water, it's a huge attraction, and the property itself is gorgeous.
Yeah.
So
Yes, it is. Because we live nearby, so we have a chance to come here and eat twice a week at least. So that brings me to food. The food itself is quite remarkable. Can you mention some things about that?
I pay tribute to that to our staff. We have had the pleasure of having great chefs here to begin with. We as directors and all departments cross over very well. That includes our kitchen, both the chef and the staff, our hourly staff as well. And between our chef and our food and beverage director, they work well together in seeing, both what's economical and what people are, passionate about, and knowing our demographic. Once you know your demographic, then you're going to be successful.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because the owners, Dave Kendall, Steve Davis, and Nick Mao, have all known each other for a really long time. And you're fitting into that whole situation.
Well, I believe that you guys, when you interviewed Dave had said when he took the property over that he wanted to, so to speak, blend in with us, the staff here, which is always interesting. Yes, yeah. Which is always interesting coming from a owner to, his directors and managers and then hourly staff.
I also have to comment in terms of what Nick does besides teach people how to play. You're involved with the food here, and we probably come a couple times a week just because the food is so good. How did you come by that talent?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for enjoying our food. I hope every other golfers in the guests feel the same. So I just got lucky with my staff, and my staffs are just wonderful. They have great experience in the food business, and they put their 110% every time they make a food, which is great, right? So again, it's not me really per se, it's our staff that did all the work, and they provide a wonderful food for all the golfers and the guests. So I am lucky as you are. Let me put it that way.
Yeah. And with that being said, I always like to share with interviews or tours that I have with my clients that out of 99 charter members, out of that first year in 1899, I say that very strongly. I'm like, imagine 1899. Yeah. 11 were women.
Yeah.
Washtenaw has had a huge following of ladies through the years and had built up clear through, which is why I'm blessed to have some of the features that I have here because of those 11 women. So I would say we're pioneers here.
Yeah, in fact, that probably has just more than a little bit to do with the fact that food is such a huge part of it.
Huge. I digressed, yes. Back to the food. We do a really good job, like I said. We have a good following, and the chef does a really good job, like I said, on showing features, what's happening during the week, and keeping it with the demographic and knowing what people eat when they eat it. It's the responsibility of our daily operations, which is, the opposite, the middle end of kind of what I don't do. But they do a really good job of keeping it moving too. You have a golf course and people want that pace of play is incredibly important, and they try to keep everybody moving so no one's angry.
Well, yes. You mentioned the demographic a couple of times.
Yes.
Can you describe that?
Yes. Because we are historic and 125 years, the demographic is interesting. We have an older following, and as well as a younger and up and coming demographic that do golf here. They have events here. Because of that history, we have a lot of former members that are season pass holders. We have a lot of former members that come and dine on Wednesday evenings that are older. I mean, we're talking anywhere from 70 to in their 90s. Some have lost spouses. Some of those spouses I actually have done a celebration of life for.
Oh, wow.
And in those celebration of lives, there's always people that pop up that have a history here. I met a gal for a celebration of life, and she actually had her family was the original deed holder to this property.
Wow.
And I'm talking before the golf course actually was even existed.
Kidding.
Yes.
So we're talking 1897 or
We're
something.
talking probably then, and she was actually born on the property. That's how she started off. So she had, and I was perplexed. I'm thinking, what hole did you have, where were you born on? She said, no, it was before it was even a golf course.
Wow.
So this property has that history and that draw. I mean, we meet caddies, and every story is important, and the history is important, and it all just goes back to the brand.
Mm-hmm.
So we're the third oldest golf course. We're a hidden gem, and that's our brand.
Mm-hmm. I think the fact that it went back and forth between Washtenaw Country Club, Washtenaw Golf Club, a couple of times, had a little bit of effect on the confusion, and it took people a while to realize, I can play here.
I agree. I think that in the spirit of trying to not be confusing, the vision was to move towards a public golf course because of the fact that there's so much competition for private spaces, especially in the Michigan area, and especially in this area close to us in Washtenaw County. And with that being said, the teetering back and forth between golf club or country club, I don't think either way would have been a bad thing, but they didn't want to give the impression that country club meant exquisitely private, because that's not where we were.
Right.
With the hope that possibly we could get that way down the road. But again, future is, we just have a lot of competition, but we just know we're here. They've done a really good job of, managing and owning the property and doing all of those amazing things, from my end of the building with events and everything non-daily to all of daily operations and outside.
Oh, that's a lot. What happens in the winter?
It's interesting. I get that question a lot from everyone in the golf industry, where they think that if they contact me that I am not in because I should not be here because it's winter, which is interesting because that's actually when I get busy.
Yeah.
So I am here all year round. Events happen all year round. The golf course, even though sometimes it may close, it's probably closed maybe 1 week, 2 weeks, weather dependent. But I am here, and that's when it's engagement season. And so engagement season starts November through February. So then we're at it again. So it's just a really long cycle of, the events happen. For daily operations, things settle down. It should, because they're so hyped.
Yeah.
They're always busy on it. My schedule's a little bit more regimented than everybody else's. I am very privileged with that I don't have that rigorous schedule, but I'm consistent as far as when I'm here and those things.
But you mentioned the cycle, and it's kind of interesting because you're probably always either planning an event or having an event.
Both, yes, all the time.
Since 1977, Dennis Walters has been encouraging audiences to reach for their dreams, strive for excellence, and to do something positive in their lives they didn't think they could do. During his lifelong journey, he has traveled over 3 million miles and has made over 3,000 appearances, 4 of which have been here and the 4th is today, I might add. His remarkable comeback from an accident that left him paralyzed from the waist down earned him the prestigious Ben Hogan Award. In addition, he is the recipient of the PGA of America's Distinguished Service Award and the USGA's Bob Jones Award. These are the highest honors given by these organizations. His amazing career reached its pinnacle when he was inducted into the World Golf Hall of Fame in 2019. In 2022, Dennis won the inaugural USGA's Adaptive U.S. Open in the seated division. This is the U.S. Open for people with disabilities. So I'd like to give a warm welcome to Dennis Walters.
Thank you so much, everybody. Weather's a lot better this year. So whoever made the adjustment, nice going. I love coming here for a number of reasons. First, it's all the good that's done from this tournament. Every one of you who came out today has done a really nice thing in supporting the Fulton owner and the groups that benefit from this tournament. So I salute you, and I appreciate you, and I think that everyone who's come out has done a very nice thing for a very good cause. Now, your opening act today has 2 assignments. He's going to bark out the answers to questions. That's right. I brought a talking dog with me today. And he's also going to hit a few shots. So, today we have 3 categories: math, general information, and golf trivia. We're starting with math 2 and 2. Come on, this is big entertainment here. 2 times 3. 2 times 3. Perfect. 10 minus 5. Okay. We're now going to golf trivia. Wait for this one. Down. How many times did Jack Nicklaus win the Masters? That's right. Who could forget 86? What about Arnold Palmer? Correct. Tiger? That is correct. And how about me? Right again.
Let's take an event, probably a wedding. What are some of the things, some of the details that go into planning and overseeing an event like that?
Clients tend to start with me and end with me. I say that because I work with clients anywhere from 2 years to 3 months and this is only weddings. So I've had weddings plan themselves way far out. Again, everything depends on kind of the economy and those cycles of how couples are doing things. You have to pay attention to those things. But it's a long process, and we go through it together. I am with them clear through the day of, and then the staff takes over, and I have my wonderful food and beverage director. I've got my wonderful banquet manager. Our hourly staff is amazing, and that's one area that we have always been successful in keeping and maintaining people that want to work for us.
You just caused another question, which is there's a banquet director and
food and beverage director and banquet manager.
What are the differences in their jobs?
So you will be speaking to Ryan Pfeiffer sometime along the way, and Ryan oversees food and beverage. So he oversees banquets and he oversees daily operation. Okay. He works in conjunction with the kitchen. I work in conjunction with everybody here. And my banquet manager is the one that oversees the events.
Okay.
So they will run them. They will be the point person that when my client needs to go to them, they know what they need before they need it.
Wow. That's not only a lot of people to keep up with, it's a lot of things they're doing to keep up with.
A lot of detail.
Yeah.
Everything is in the detail. A detail can make an event or break an event.
So you mentioned details. What's an example of a detail that can make an event?
With weddings especially, it's paying attention to the client's vision. Vision is huge, understanding them, and again, when you work with someone for a long period of time, if you're good at what you do, you can kind of see what they expect from you. So we tend to go above and beyond. There was a time where I've had a client who it was a groomsman, and he ripped his the seam in his suit. They were getting ready to go outside, and I ended up trying to fix the situation in the moment and managed to do it so it wouldn't be shown in the pictures. The rest of it didn't matter because those pictures are incredibly important. So, because you're going to stare at those for a lifetime and pick that out.
Was that tape or
so
needle
it
and
was
thread?
tape, and it was tape actually, and safety pins.
Oh.
So there was another time where a gentleman didn't know how to tie his bow tie. Neither did I. But luckily, I happened to have a wonderful, experienced server that had worked here for a while, and she was able to tie his bow tie. We've had numerous examples of that. It's just those small things that they remember.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
And those small things that they, that can actually also change the trajectory too. We don't have a lot of those though, because if you pay attention to all the details in the vision, we're pretty good at making things as smooth sailing as possible. So
you can anticipate it more so than the client can.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I always remind my clients that what they think is detrimental and stressful, only they know. No one else in their guest parties know any of that. So
okay, so the whole idea is to put them at ease.
Yeah. Exactly.
What's your favorite part about your job?
I love people. Doesn't matter who it is. I learn from everybody that I meet. Even if they have a grievance, you just have to listen. So it's all in listening and trying to talk them off the ledge, as I always say. And it's trying to solve a problem. Is the grievance something that we did? Is it something that's perceived? And in figuring that out, then you can accommodate as best as you can.
So it's a way to really get to know people,
Yes.
a lot of people, and
Yes.
really well sometimes.
Yes,
Yeah.
I know some things I probably don't want to know about people, but because I love and I find them interesting, yes.
Well, you sound like the perfect person for a really demanding job. Donna, it's been fun talking with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys.
In all those amateur victories, what was one that stood out more than maybe any of the others?
Well, I have to say it was the Michigan medal play at Washtenaw Country Club, because I really never knew if I could win anything until I actually did. Nobody knows that, and once you go through the experience of winning, it helps your momentum for future tournaments. So that first win, and then the next few years after that, I won the Michigan Amateur. So then I knew that I could play within Michigan, but I didn't have any idea that I could play nationally also, which came about later on.
Good morning. I'm Jennie McCafferty with Michigan Golfer. We're at beautiful Washtenaw Golf Club, and even the more beautiful bar early on this morning, with owner Dave Kendall and PGA Pro from 1999 to 2007, Jim Wilson. It's so nice to have both of you here on this really early morning.
Yes, thank you, Jenny. It's great to be here.
It's great to have Jimmy here again. I was a member here in 2002, and Jim was the best host I can imagine. So we really enjoyed our time.
We sure did. It was a fun relationship. I remember when you joined the club, I was so happy that you were going to be a part of the Washtenaw family.
Well, at some point, Washtenaw Country Club became Washtenaw Golf Club. Were you here during that time?
You know, I had left for another club, and it went from a private club to Washtenaw Golf Club, and I guess it was owned another owner at that time, right, Dave?
Yeah, by the Burgers. They owned Polo Fields, and they bought Washtenaw, and for a short period of time it became Polo Fields Washtenaw.
Oh, yes.
And it became public at that time. If you were a member of Polo Fields, you were a member of Washtenaw, so they were private still, but then became public once they sold Polo Fields and just owned Washtenaw. That was around 18 or 19.
I see, yes, that's correct. I believe that's correct.
So your tenure was 1999 to 2007, and probably some momentous things happened, but let's start at the beginning with you. At what point did you become a PGA pro?
Well, it was an interesting story. A friend of mine had come home with his name on a golf bag. And I said, "What the heck is that all about?" He said, "I'm an assistant pro."
Oh.
And I said, "Assistant pro? You can't even beat me." So I just said, "Tell me more about this assistant pro." And about a month later, I had my name on a golf bag. So that's how it all came about. So I went through as an apprentice pro. So you earned a point per month working in the pro shop. And that meant I cleaned a lot of golf clubs and picked up the range balls and worked a lot of hours. But it was a passion that I really had for serving the members and offering all those fun services. So,
how many points did you have to get to be got a step up?
It was about a 4-year program.
36 credits.
And it took me because our winters were or summers were short. We didn't get points in the winter, so about 36 credits.
Yeah.
Dave's right. Yeah.
So, what are you doing at the moment?
Well, right now I am a in-home service consultant for Home Depot Interiors, and I'm also a sales coach. So I oversee the sales in about 7 states for Home Depot. And we help a lot of people with their home improvements, windows, kitchens, and in some areas roofing and siding. So that's what I'm up to and have been for many years.
And you'll be coming over to our house soon, I assume. So during your Washtenaw Golf Club years, what are some of your favorite memories?
Well, the first year I came back, it was the centennial year, and it was a week-long celebration. I can't tell you how exciting it was for everybody. I mean, right here on the range, we started on a Monday, which traditionally we were closed, but we made a whole week of it. And we had Ed Humanick came back, he had played on the PGA Tour, and Doug Davis, the Tim and Dan Roberts boys, they shared their junior golf experiences here. We had Bud Stevens, who is a great amateur champion, and I mean, it went all week long, all the way through a couples extravaganza on Saturday, which was the finale of it all, and we ended up with a formal party with all types of honorees, and members from the past and present were all included.
And along the way, I imagine you met some really interesting people. One of the ones that comes to mind is, did you know Randy Erskine?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Randy Erskine was, he is Michigan's Jack Nicklaus and Peter Jacobson combined. I mean to tell you, it was such an honor and a pleasure to work for and with Randy Erskine. You really never could keep up with the man. I mean, he was just so committed to every day, and he was an innovator. He was fitting clubs and bending clubs and building clubs here on site long before it was the popular thing to do. He absolutely had a passion for all aspects of the golf industry, and he led by example. He was an amazing worker. Randy was just never afraid to take on anything, and whether it was bending clubs, building clubs, he was the top merchandiser in the country, and being around Randy Erskine was just a pleasure. But let me just put Randy in the shadows for a moment. The real joy was Judy. I mean, Judy was just, if the word kind and Judy had a fist fight, kind would immediately back, because kind could never be as kind as Judy was. What a great lady.
That's so true.
So you knew Judy also?
Yeah. You know, I remember being out in Palm Springs at a senior club pro championship, and I'm playing with Lynn Jansen, Randy Erskine, Gary Groh. And I said, wow, if somebody ever told me I'd be playing with these legends, I would have never believed it. And so Lynn says to me, hey Dave, why do you think Randy was so good? He thought I didn't know. I said, that's easy. Randy is the most positive player on the golf course of anybody who ever lived.
Oh, yes.
He just always thinks that everything's going to work out and everything's going to be fine because he's going to see to it. He's amazing. He's inspirational. You know, I tried to be more like him. I just wasn't as good at it.
You get a classic golf course in Washtenaw Country Club.
And I think that course, the Washtenaw Country Club course, is more than 100 years old, isn't it?
Correct. It was established in 1899. Been around for a long time. Donald Ross did oversee some of the work out there, and it's just your classic traditional golf course. It's one that you can't find anymore in the state of Michigan, really.
Men are playing white tees, ladies play the reds. 65 plus for men. You are playing the forward tees if you choose. Veterans get to play any tee that they choose. Max score today is bogey. So if you bogey, please pick up, move on to the next hole. Please keep up with the group in front of you. Some contests on the hole or on the course today. We have closest to the pin for men, it's on hole number 14. Closest to the pin for ladies is on hole number 12. Longest drive for men, hole number 6. Longest drive for ladies is on hole number 2. Each group has an official scorecard with your drink ticket stapled to it, 2 per person. Please make sure you keep score on that, and once you conclude play today, return it to the pro shop so we can get your scores put in for live scoring as fast as possible. There will be a horn to signal play today, so please wait to hit your first tee shots until you hear that horn. You have lead-ups to take you onto the golf course, so please wait for your lead-ups to signal you to go onto the golf course. Once again, there is a horn to signal play, so please wait for the horn before you hit your first tee shots. Bring your scorecards up to the pro shop once you conclude play. Return your carts down by the cart barn. Head into the banquet area for your dinner.
Is Ryan Pfeiffer, who we really love because we come over here for food at least twice a week, and he's in charge of it. Is that fair?
Definitely. Yeah, I love having you guys. Always a pleasure when I see you guys walking in the door.
Well, Ryan, how did you get involved in the food business?
Well, quite a while ago, I was in a completely different area of expertise. I actually was IT and construction. That's how I started out, but basically I ended up getting a job at another golf course, and I fit right into the food area. Obviously, at one point I did consider going to school for culinary, so becoming a front of the house manager was ideal because you got to deal with a little bit of the food as well as be on the floor, and obviously being a chatter as I am, it kind of all made sense.
Well, it does make sense, and I'm always struck by how different it has to be to get food ready for a tournament that's ending and people are hungry and coming in kind of at different times. And then on the other end of the scale, you've got weddings. That's really different, isn't it?
Definitely. That is what makes the golf course food and beverage very unique. It is different every day. When you work in a restaurant, it's rhythmic. Everything is the same day in, day out. Same. Golf course, you have a bar, you have weddings, you have different events, baby showers, all sorts of family events, different menus. So you're executing things where you have to be on top of your game and on top of your toes because it's ever changing. You're dealing with many different food items, different bar packages. So it makes it a very exciting food and beverage job as opposed to other ones where you can get very burnt out very quickly.
Yeah, I can see how that would make a big difference. Well, you've got your three owners. You've got Dave, and you've got Steve, and you've got Nick. And I understand that Nick is really involved in the kitchen.
Definitely. Nick basically has a lot of teaching here. He is a golf professional, and he also has a restaurant himself. Nick is Korean, so he has Nagomi Sushi, which is located in Ann Arbor, and they do a fabulous job. So if you do like sushi, I recommend Nagomi. And it's Korean barbecue too. So Nick was brought on, I think, as with ownership to come out and kind of be a liaison with the food and beverage. Dave, obviously, golf, and Nick has a food background. So Nick really steps away. He's not as involved as you might actually imagine. So I guess that's a good thing. I think it's because it means we're doing the right thing. So, but Nick really does have a huge impact on everything we do here, and he's always willing to lend a hand. That's one thing I love about Nick. He makes us feel like he works for us and not the other way around, and I think that's a great attribute as an owner. Always willing and available to help.
Wow, that's an interesting way to put it. So talk a little bit about weddings. I imagine you've got mothers of the bride, you've got brides, you've got a lot of people with ideas. You must be a diplomat.
Yeah, definitely. So I will say, yes, we have our fair share of fun with the weddings. Quite a bit of after conversation can occur from many of the stories. I would say most of our weddings we do have fun and enjoy. But we do get yes, the bridezilla. Yes, it is. It is a real term. But most of the brides are pretty relaxed and chill that we have here. And of course, there is the dynamic where you do have the mother of the bride. Sometimes we are playing, as you said, the diplomat. We are actually the liaison between the bride and the mom and the bridesmaids, trying to keep the peace. We're doing everything we can do correctly, but they sometimes have disagreements, so sometimes we do have to play diplomat on that, and that actually can be quite fun. So
that's an interesting part of a job I bet most people don't even think about. Yeah. Well, how about a golf tournament? You've got a completely different sort of situation where you've got a whole bunch of people who've been out playing and they're probably really hungry. So what kinds of things do you get ready for a group like that?
So golf outings are one of the big aspects that I really enjoy the most. I should mention Noah McNamara, our food and beverage manager. He runs most of the banquet events and our weddings, does a phenomenal job. He also works in the bar as well. And I usually take the reins when it comes to golf outings, essentially because I have a big golf background myself as an avid player. So golf outings for me is a fun thing, and golf, most outings run the same. Early tee times, register, they have everything set up. Sometimes we have a breakfast, coffee, everything out and available. People tee off. Typically most golf outings will focus on something simple for a lunch, an on-the-turn burger or hot dog to keep the golfers, keep the pace of play, as outings can run a little slow. And then usually the dinner is a much more wow factor because everyone's finished. We don't have to worry about pace of play, and of course everyone wants to hang out and see if they won something.
Yeah.
And most of our outings focus on charity events, which is really great, and all sorts of different charities that the outing may support. So most of the events, there's a lot of auctions and everything of that nature, and they usually will wow the people for thanking them to come with a very nice dinner. Typically fillets is a very good choice, but we can do all sorts of different menu items for them.
Okay, so you might have a buffet style for breakfast, but not for dinner.
Dinner, we do both. We do buffet or plated. Completely up to the choice of the outing. Obviously, it all comes with a price cost. But I would say a vast majority of our outings are about 50-50 from plated to buffet.
Oh, okay. That's an interesting way to think about it. Yeah. So, what is one of the big challenges of your job?
I think the biggest challenge is just the overall factor that, as we were talking about earlier, there is the dynamic of a golf course, and it makes it interesting, but at the same time, the different events and the change-ups can be a little overwhelming at times. It can be a little tough to balance that. It takes particular mindsets to work with that, where every day, one day you have a late night, you have a wedding, and then the next day you have a 9 a.m. tee time. So your turnaround times can be kind of quick, and that can usually be something that can weigh on your shoulders a little bit, especially if you have back-to-back events, because you want the weddings to look beautiful, absolutely. But you have a Saturday wedding, and it's followed right up by a prior Friday night wedding. It can be turned into a late night and a very early morning. But ultimately, we try to get it done, and we always make sure that each wedding gets the best service possible.
Well, Ryan, it sounds like you have fun with your job.
Definitely do. I really enjoy Washtenaw Golf Club. I highly recommend, if you have never played this course, to come on out. And basically, what makes my job so enjoyable is not only the golfers in the golf course, but it's the people you work with and that you get to share a lot of good times with.
Good times. That's the whole story. Thank you, Ryan. We're at Washtenaw Golf Club on a beautiful day, and with us is the 3 people who own this beautiful place. We have right here Steve Davis, Dave Kendall, and Nick Ma, and they have a great story to tell. In fact, we're going to start here with Steve. Apparently you and Dave have known each other for a while.
We've known each other a very long time. We used to play golf together in Jackson as kids. We'd go around and around at Arbor Hills Country Club, and of course we went to the same high school, so yeah, I've known Dave forever, and we're still having a great time here working at Washtenaw and trying to make it better.
Are you playing golf together sometimes?
We sure do, and I'll tell you a quick story. I'll tell Dave, hey, you're a professional player, you're a great player, and probably a +5, and I'm an 8 or a 9, so why don't we go play, and you give me 10 or 12 strokes, and we'll have a great time. Play for a couple of bucks. And he'll say, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you what you gave me when we were kids. Nothing. So we have a lot of fun when we play.
He was 2 grades ahead of me. Yeah, so
yeah, we play together a lot, and we have a lot of fun together. We have a lot of respect for each other, so we have a great time.
Well, Dave, you also are involved with Kendall Academy, so you basically started out mostly as an instructor, right?
Yeah, at Kendall Academy, we came to this area in 1997. I was the golf professional at Cadillac Country Club for 17 years. Karen and I went there as newlyweds in 1980, and we were there through 96. And while I was there, I got to know Chris Mile. Chris Mile, the operator of Miles of Golf. That's how we became acquainted, and he needed a golf teacher, and it was my opportunity to start my academy at that time, and it was a real good time. And I think to have a standalone teaching business, it has to be in the right place. I don't think you could do it everywhere. I don't think you could do it here at Washtenaw because the range is too small. And they have a great retail business and a real nice range, and it was a real good place where a teacher could establish a business. And then as my business got bigger, we had added instructors, and that's how I got to know Nick. Nick has although he's a restaurateur today in Ann Arbor, that's how he's known, but actually has quite a background in the golf business and actually taught at my academy for many years, and so we became close friends. So I told Nick that when we'd talked about this for some years, that I wouldn't do it without him. And
exactly. So that's how we started.
And he said, "Well, I won't do it without you." So anyways, it's funny
Dream,
how
yeah,
things turned out.
absolutely.
You know, we talked about it for many years before we ever did that, and this was a place that we were interested in.
Yeah, and it was our dream to own a golf course, and this
Yeah.
happens to be there.
Yeah.
So I'm lucky to meet Steve on the way, and it's my dream, and I'm so glad that I have these partners with me.